Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. The Monroe County Redevelopment Authority, first public hearing of the Monroe County for Monroe County on behalf of the East Stroudsburg and Stroudsburg boroughs for fiscal year 2024 Community Block Grant. Martha, the show is yours. Get the microphone. No, it's on the,
Sorry.
so the world can hear you, Martha. Please see this on YouTube later today.
Well, good morning.
Thank you.
My name is Martha Robbins, and I'm the Executive Director of the Monroe County Redevelopment Authority. And our agency is designated as the county's Community Block Grant Program Administrator. This morning, I'm going to provide an overview of the Community Development Block Grant Program, which I'll refer to as CDBG. The county, along with East Stroudsburg and Stroudsburg Borough, will begin their grant planning and the application process for the federal fiscal year 2024 CDBG. There will be one submission deadline for all three entities. The application submission deadline date has not been set yet by DCED. Pursuant to the county's citizen participation plan, this is the first public hearing that is required during the process. Public hearing is to provide citizens with information, collect comments about the CDBG program, its eligible activities, administrative program requirements, and expected funding allocations for potential applicants. An ad providing notification of this public hearing was published in the Pocono Record on June 13, 2024, and also posted on the county's East Stroudsburg and Stroudsburg Borough websites as well. The County of Monroe will hold a second public hearing for all communities that will identify proposed activities to be undertaken with the 2024 CDBG program on October 2nd, 2024. Just as a quick CDBG overview of the program. It's authorized by Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. These funds are block grants that can be used to address critical and unmet community needs, including those for housing rehabilitation, public facilities, infrastructure, economic development, public services, and more. In 1984, the Commonwealth enacted Act 179, which created a system by which CDBG program funds would be distributed to the Commonwealth. In Monroe County, 3 government entities received direct entitlement allocations. Those include Monroe County, the Borough of East Stroudsburg, and Stroudsburg Borough. CDBG program is the longest running program of HUD's and remains a principal source of federal funding to state and local governments, including counties, in assisting low and moderate income people. While the program has changed very little since its inception, the need for the program. Each project activity must meet one of 3 federally mandated national objectives set by HUD. Benefit to low and moderate income persons, prevention or elimination of blight, and urgent need. Grantees must be able to show that every CDBG funded activity fits into one of these categories. By regulation, at least 70% of funds must be allocated to programs benefiting low, moderate income persons annually. Historically, the CDBG program in Monroe County has served 100% to low and moderate income persons. Some CDBG eligible activities, there are 4 primary funding categories: public service, public facility, for infrastructure improvement, economic development, and housing. For public services, eligible activities may include job training, childcare, health services, senior services, after-school programs, homeless services, domestic violence prevention, legal services, housing counseling, and food banks. Public facilities improvements is improvements to publicly owned facilities and infrastructure, such as streets, playgrounds, underground utilities, and buildings owned by nonprofits that are open to the general public. Eligible activities under this category include, but are not limited to, rehabilitation or construction of neighborhood center, construction of homeless shelters, rehabilitation to or construction of facilities serving persons with disabilities, ADA modifications at public facilities, and improvements to improve public libraries. On the economic, activities are to foster the economic opportunity, including micro enterprise and small business development, commercial and industrial development, job creation, job retention, job training activities. Housing, these are activities to foster safe, affordable housing opportunities for low and moderate income households. Some of these eligible activities include housing rehabilitation program, energy efficiency, acquisition, and site improvement. Under the housing categories, the most common CDBG funded activity for the county, which is their occupied housing rehabilitation program. For decades, the County of Monroe has provided CDBG funds to this program, which is administered by the authority. The program brings properties up to local codes and maintains health and safety through lead-based paint testing, as well as radon testing and support of efficiency. Historically, the program has provided homeowners with the means of making aging in place home improvements and to enhance handicap accessibility through ramps and grab ups. The first 10 years, the authority has assisted approximately 284 low moderate income households. Our goal for 2024 is 24 units. Currently, there are 180 interested applicants on our list, which is a first come, first served process. Low and moderate income, which is also known as LMI, means a family or household with an annual income less than 80% of the area median income. Monroe County's median income for a family of 4 for 2024 is $103,500, which is an increase of $3,500 from 2023. Income limits for CDBG are updated annually by HUD. Our agency is responsible for ensuring we use the current income limit to capture the beneficiary data. Receiving this grant through Monroe County means that they have to comply with all applicable federal and local requirements, retain records for at least 5 years after grant closeout, maintain a strong fiscal management system, agree to be monitored by DCED, submitting timely quarterly and annual reports, and complying with contract terms. Commitment can be canceled or contracts terminated due to non-compliance. Davis-Bacon rates are a grant requirement for projects such as street and road improvements. The RDA conducts an environmental review and historic review of all street and road projects and every housing rehab project. No work can be started until that environmental review is complete. As I mentioned earlier, the announcement of the Monroe County 2024 CDBG allocation has not been announced by DCED prior to this public hearing. So the application preparation schedule for 2024 CDBG will be the first public hearing. October 2nd will be the second public hearing. As mentioned earlier, this is the first of second hearings that is required to seek input from citizens. Second public hearing is set for October 2nd, and at that time, the commissioners will share proposed projects and approve the 2024 application and authorize its submission to DCED by resolution.
Are there any questions for Martha?
Is your packet of information going to be available anywhere?
I can provide that to the county and put it on.
Will the packet also include its data? Does the data categorize U.S. citizens versus non-U.S. citizens versus non-documented individuals?
We go by HUD, the term, what they provide us. That's what they provide us.
So,
Offhand, no, I don't know how.
Thank you, Martha.
I'm sorry.
Please.
Yes, the presentation will be. Okay.
Does that close that hearing? We'll open up our next one, corrections to the duplicate. Cindy Tribal. Well, thank you, Cindy. Is there any public comment on agenda items only? Seeing none, let's move on. Amend the motion of 2024-179 dated 6/5/24 to change the recommended bid alternatives for the water tank replacement to options 1 and 6 and option 2. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Old business, approve the minutes of the June 5th, 2024 Commissioners Meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're busy with our proclamations and certificates this month. We have Tara Greens for the 60th anniversary. Margaret A. Haworth, retired MCTA Executive Director. I had asked who that was. I only knew Peggy. David Fairservice for 50 years of employment at Coolbaugh Township. Coolbaugh Municipal Park's 50th anniversary. And Chestnut Hill Township's Little Mexico Trailhead completion. I need a motion for the proclamations and certificates.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. New business, personnel. Motion for A and B. A is the personnel agenda and B is to approve requests for overtime in the sheriff's office. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Electronic transfers, transactions, A through C. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Travel authorizations. Approve and ratify travel requests for assessment, conservation district, prothonotary clerk of courts, and vector control. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Area Agency on Aging, approve an agreement with ESU for DWP Efficiency Project 2024, authorizing Area Agency on Aging Director Mary Claire McGonigal to sign for the program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is a program that is swallowing, and it's we worked out our little problems that we might have had with the contract, and this is going to be there's a professor at ESU that is working quite diligently on this, and hopefully it'll have good results for the whole country. Children and youth, execute a purchase service agreement with Phoenix House for a period of 7/1/23 through 6/30/24, and a maximum amount of $335,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Commissioner's Office, approve the budget adjustment report of 6/17/24 totaling $518,108. According to our astute fiscal director, 96.7% of that is courthouse expansion bond for $240,000 for FF&E, grants for ESG 2023 through 25 Part 2 for $196,930. In human resources, $42,000 for a salary study, and grants for the state food reallocation for $22,191. Ratify the authorization of the chief clerk administrator to advertise the first public hearing of the Monroe County on behalf of the East Stroudsburg and Stroudsburg Borough fiscal year 2024 CDBG program. Ratify change order to Lobar. Change order general change 021 in the amount of an additional $76,796 and 60 cents to changes in the AVIT room, added footings, temporary wall footer over excavation, revised renovation work, additional work, concrete piers, additional floor support, added ceiling and soffit, added installation, wall tile, and painting chair rail and base. Approve a change order for Barclay Insurance for HVAC 2020-010 in the total amount of $28,015 for changes adding refrigerant valves and installation of electric heaters. Ratify an agreement for superheat for the amount of $6,818.70 for replacement of a variable speed drive on the cooling tower in this administrative center. Therefore, we have air conditioning today. That's why we're ratifying it. Accept a proposal for Nauman to replace air conditioning system in the Planning Commission's 4th floor front office on 701 Main, in the amount of $13,118, lowest of 3 quotes. And execute a business associates agreement with MadScripts LLC to provide voluntary prescription program for eligible county employees. Approve the 24-25 fiscal year budgets as follows. These are on state budget cycles, so it's from June. Children and youth for $20,572,424. Area Agency on Aging for $3,745,990. Grants Administration Department for $141,374. State Food Purchase Program for $258,831. Human Services Development Fund for $94,507. Homeless Assistance Program for $50,195. MCTA for $1,072,544. And CareerLink $1,026,144 for a total of $26,962,009. Add the correctional vendors to the approved list of vendors for the correctional facility: Nehemiah Sober Living, Aging Karen Sunderland, and Celise D. Markin, and the Commissioner's Office for the American Program Bureau, Inc. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Conservation District, acknowledge receipt of the financial statement audit for the period ending of December 31st, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Grants, we have A through I. Approve $5,200 additional homeless assistance program allocation to the Pocono Area Transitional Housing for the fiscal year of 23-24. Ratify authorization of the grant manager, Jennifer Strauch, to electronically submit the fiscal year 24 Bryan discretionary community project grants for amount of $1,009,000 for use of Monroe County Safety First Network Phase 1 two-way infrastructure replacement. That's for the control center. Approve the 24-25 Homeless Assistance Program, HAP, and Human Services Development Fund, HSDF, subrecipient applications is listed below. You'll see Family Promise, Pocono Transitional Area Housing, Salvation Army, Resources of Human Development, and Women's Resources of Monroe County, which is now known as Safe Monroe. HSDF allocations for CMP, MHDS, Carbon Monroe Pike, Mental Health and Developmental Services, Sites for Hope, and Pocono Services for Families and Children. We also approved the 2023-24 State Food Purchase Program sub-recipient additional allocations totaling $20,891 for Bushkill Outreach, Pleasant Valley Economical Network, Pocono Mountains Economical, St. Matthew's Catholic Church, and Top of the Mountain for the $20,891. Those are area that was extra money that was left over, and it had to be expended by the end of June. So we reached out to the grants people reached out to those who could spend the money, and those are the ones that received it. Approve the Pennsylvania State Police 2024 Automobile Theft Major Motor Vehicle Insurance Fraud Grant for a total of $130,332. approve the HSDF additional allocation to Carbon Monroe Pike Mental Health and Developmental Services for $1,050. Execute Act 24 Emergency Rental Assistance Program, Round 2, ERAP, recipient agreement for the Monroe County Housing Authority for totaling $1,600,000 for gas line replacements. Execute the Act 24 Emergency Rental Assistance Program, Round 2 of ERAP, agreement with Family Promise of the Poconos for $690,000 for purchase of 3 homes. Approve the Emergency Solutions Grant 2023-25 subrecipient contracts in the amount of $196,930 for emergency shelter for Family Promise, emergency shelter for Resources for Human Development, emergency shelter for Stroudsburg Wesleyan Church, street outreach for Resources of Human Development, also known as Street to Feet, homeless prevention, Family Promise, and rapid rehousing of Family Promise. Is there a motion for A through I?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Capital outlay purchases. Ratify the capital purchase dated June 13th of $3,652.98 and approve the capital purchase date dated on June 13th for a total of $1,222,234.27. You're all asking, what did that $3,652 get you? We got a shredder for elections, and the $1 million is FF&E for the most part. For the expansion, the sheriff got a bulletproof vest, and the corrections got 3 refrigerators and 3 vinyl carts. Is there a motion to approve the capital outlay purchases?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Computer capital. Approve the computer capital purchase report on 6/14 for $13,820.20 and ratify the computer purchase report on 6/13 totaling $13,913.28. Those are for computers for CareerLink and also for children and youth. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Miscellaneous. Any miscellaneous? Any public comment? Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hey, it's Officer Kubik from the jail. I couldn't make it out there this week. I had some things going on, but I know this isn't necessarily the forum for it, but I just wanted to take the time to address that. I know some of the sergeants at the jail are working with the commissioners and the prison board to address their pay scale, as far as tiers and things like that. I'm hoping there's some movement on that because we've got 3 supervisors coming up that are going to be gone pretty soon, 2 retiring in July and maybe 1 in September. We're all well aware there's a lot of issues at the jail, culture that needs to change and get fixed. And that starts with quality administrators and supervisors. And unfortunately, if we look at the history, we don't have any senior officers applying for these positions. And we need to take a hard look at why we're getting just junior officers and unqualified people. I think a lot of that comes back to the pay scale and the tiers, and people won't take the position without knowing how they're going to advance. And I'm just hoping there's some movement on that, because if we hire the wrong people in July as the next supervisors, the sergeants and lieutenants, this jail is just going to continue down the path it's going. And, I don't want that. We don't want that. It needs to get fixed. And I'm hoping before July, there's some movement on that, because that's when the next positions are going to come up. So.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Teresa?
Is for
Yes.
well, there's many organizations there, and I just don't see anything mentioned for veterans. So if I was to look up any of these organizations? Or if I look it up, is there somewhere to look up on the county nation website that I could find out like where exactly the money accounts being, instead of just a general term?
Well, you could, if you look at like the HAP for Family Promise of Monroe County, it's Emergency Shelter Services. And it spells out what services they're providing.
Said before about HUD, it's like, okay, now I have to look up HUD and HUD takes care of. So do I need to look up each individual here to see like who they're allocating money to or housing to? Is that available? I mean,
It would not be available on the county website because what we're doing is we're giving the Salvation Army money for their shelter programs that they have. Okay?
following up.
So, I mean, the grants office does, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, you have, yeah, there's,
thank you.
So what we-
Correct.
And how do people like myself get that information? Like, do I have to do a FOIA or do I contact the grants office? I'm not trying to
I mean-
sway anybody, I'm just.
no, you can, I mean, you can, I think we'd be happy to meet with you to explain it. I mean, I can tell you right now, I know from working with the Salvation Army, we definitely have to do paperwork for these things. There's grants that the Salvation Army hasn't taken because it prevents them from being able to uh, deal with clients the way they want to, and the reporting is onerous, so they say it's more trouble than it's worth in some cases. So there's definitely, and all these places have emergency shelter. Family Promise, we know, has shelters. Pocono Transitional Housing has a whole house. That's what they do. So they have the bridge housing services. But if you want details on each one, I mean, I'd be happy to meet with you, but
Each invoice has to be allocated to whatever service they are providing. So you would see that's part of the grant process that we go back. We have 3 people, that's all they do is check on that stuff. You would not, you might see past grants, but you wouldn't be able to see current grants because it's an ongoing process. We've allocated this money, and as they pay down, submit their invoices, then that gets totaled. But if you wanted to see a past grant, we could. But all you're going to do is see the invoices of what services they provided.
Immigrants who are undocumented, veterans.
I don't know.
I mean, you're asking a lot. I mean, let's just take the Salvation Army. A person is homeless and needs to be sheltered. They would have to meet the criteria to be in that shelter. And if you're saying Salvation Army needs to do all this paperwork so that you can know, I mean, it just makes it harder to serve people. So okay. Mhm. And there's,
County, state or the federal government is still taxpayer money, so.
Right.
we should
And
be-
I can tell you, everybody that the Salvation Army serves, they have to meet the requirements that the federal government gives.
But if you have,
order to give the-
if you go to St. Matthew's Church to walk into their afternoon meal on Saturday afternoons, they don't ask whether you're anything of you.
Right.
It's a free meal. And that's part of the state funding that they are able to do that, part of it.
Yeah.
Well, there's no requirement. If you're hungry, you can go and eat.
Yeah, and then we can do that. I mean, Sally Sharma, the food that they serve at the breakfast and lunch, you and I can walk in and get it. Okay, it's there for everyone. Now the distribution's different, and that's where you have to meet the requirements in order to get in the line and pick up your food on those regularly scheduled ones. There's other ones in the community that don't have those requirements, but
Right,
Um,
there's very few, there's only 5 or 6 that participate with the state food program, because like the Wesleyan Church does not participate in the state food program because they get their donations from within the Wesleyan Church. So you can, on Friday, one Friday a month, you can go to the Wesleyan Church and get food. They don't ask for any documentation or whatever. If you just go and you can get it. Is there anything else? Yes.
One issue that I've repeatedly brought documents from the Monroe Council of Republican Women, the Polk Republican Committee, is the issue of Sharon Lavendor sitting here on the board, having violated election law, attempted to cover it up through falsifying the date on the documents submitted to the election board, subsequently taking her oath in December, falsely asserting in that oath that she did not knowingly violate election law or procured someone to do otherwise. So we see 3 distinct violations, and I understand the process has taken this to the Attorney General's office, but it is extremely frustrating to look at the lack of resolution in a situation that we view as very serious. And I've made personal statements too, and I'm going to make one right now. When I was 10 years old, I was a witness in a court case and obviously had not much understanding of what was going on. So when I go into the court, it's filled with adults, and one of the lawyers is determining, can this child testify reliably? So as a 10-year-old, I was asked, do you know what perjury is? And I said, perjury is lying when you're making an oath. Perjury is a mortal sin. If you die, you go to hell. I was 10 years old. The entire court burst out laughing, and I had no idea why. Now, fast forward 6 decades later, I still hold the belief that when an individual makes an oath in the court of law, that it must be made with truth and integrity. And so is the reaction that I'm childish, that I'm foolish, that I'm unrealistic to hold someone accountable, especially an elected official who is to uphold the law? Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Linda?
There are several falsehoods in that letter from the Republican women. I think if people want to stick to the facts, it would be better if they do that in their letter. The fact that Sharon is accused of trying to cover up something, that she coerced the voter, the election board. These are all false allegations. She openly went to the board, to the election board, and said she thinks it would be better if she did follow the exact letter of the law. Everything was done openly. There was no coercion. So I stick to the letter of the law. And I think it's amazing that the people that are making these accusations about us, a tiny little insignificant, meaningless change of dropping off a letter, are the people that are election deniers who Josephine Farrow is the person who is leading this charge against Sharon. And she is a false elector for Trump. I'm sorry, this is relevant. Please don't tell me this is not. That was breaking the law. In any other state, Josephine Farrow would be prosecuted. This is just such meanness. When they wrote that letter, they put slanderous allegations, which are absolutely false, and I think they should correct them.
Right.
Excuse me.
And the application was submitted.
No wording, there was no
Postdated
coercion.
7
Nope,
days.
no.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Chairman, I just need to make a correction. Linda Zach mentioned that the election board was notified about what Sharon Labrador does. That is not true. The chairman of the board knew, John Moyer, but the two members who sat in substitute were not made aware of this, and they were quite upset when they found out it came out afterwards. So don't stand there or sit there and say that they knew. They did not know. And that's one of my problems too. They should have been informed. The hope, it doesn't matter. It was a falsehood you just mentioned.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, but
Sounds to me like.
Mhm.
Kind of follow the process. I'm asking if I made that mistake, if I dropped my husband's ballot off, my proxy form, members later. I think I would go to the elections office and say, I've made a mistake, how do I correct it? I would assume that they would consult Department of State for the proper process and. Correct me if I'm
You are incorrect. Okay? If you dropped yours off and then a couple days later dropped your husband's off and then went in to say, I dropped my husband's off without the proxy, you can only turn in the ballot with the proxy. Okay?
Major point here.
Now, I understand, but go ahead. Okay.
Specifically prohibits having meaningless restrictions on voting or any form of voting, registering any particular part of the voting process. Having meaningless restrictions is illegal. That's under the Voting Rights Act, and I'm sorry I can't find it right now on my phone, but that is absolutely fact. And that is a meaningless restriction.
so state law is meaningless now. Okay, that's interesting.
I'm sorry, Detective?
Not knowing anything about the grievance at hand, I know in working for 47 years in law enforcement, including several major crimes and the arrest of a father for the murder of his 2-year-old daughter. Due process is constitutionally protected. And from what I heard today, the Attorney General's office has it.
Correct.
Due process needs to proceed at the pace it proceeds, no matter how much we dislike it.
Correct. Thank you. Is there anything else? Is there a motion?
So moved.
We are. Thank you. No, you're fine to vote.